Are we good on sound?
Yep.
Are you okay to go?
Yeah.
Like that one that's got a tongue on there.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, now action.
Action. You do what you got to do, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Give me the garlic salt.
Oh, no. No.
Come on, man. I never put that much on there.
What was that you used, Mike?
Ranch.
Oh, okay.
I'm putting a generous amount on there, Mike. But you, the other day you got carried away.
Stop it. I never get carried away.
Are those ready to go?
Yes. Okay, everybody, let's say grace. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Bless us, our Lord, for these thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord, amen. Dear God, thank you for all our health, and thank you for letting us all wake up today and to enjoy another day of your graces. We ask these prayers to be heard in your name, amen.
I'm Bob Halac.
I'm Marcia Halac, Mike's mother.
We couldn't have our own kids, so it was either adopt or be without.
And I've been wrestling professionally for 25 years. Been an athlete my whole life.
He's done well. We had a friend
Started out with
that hockey. We had a friend. His son played hockey. He says maybe that would be a good sport for him to get Mike to get into. So we tried it. We took him out to Exarban, and they give him a chair, and he pushed it around the ice for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, one day, he just took off and started skating.
Center, wasn't it?
Center, wing, little defense every once in a while, but played them all, except goalie.
He said he was too big. Yeah, he covered the whole net.
So you just drove him out, sat out there, watched them practice, and or if they had a scrimmage game or a game, you stayed and watched the game with them and all that stuff.
A famous old-time wrestler, Maurice Mad Dog Vachon, got me started in professional wrestling.
Mad Dog Vachon just lived over the hill, and I knew him from carrying mail around the neighborhood.
I met Maurice the first time when I was 10 years old. And my dad was in a bar on a Saturday afternoon having a beer, and we were eating lunch. And I happened to be playing pool. And all of a sudden the door opens up, and here comes Maurice Mad Dog Vachon. And anybody that knows Mad Dog Vachon knows that he played a vicious, mean heel when he was in the wrestling ring. So everybody was scared shitless of the Mad Dog. And I seen him walk in the door, and I immediately dropped my pool stick and was like, oh my God, that's Mad Dog Vachon. And who does he sit next to when he walks in the bar is my dad. And I immediately was freaking out. I went up and I started tugging on my dad's shirt. He says, Dad, Dad, Dad. And he was like, leave me alone, leave me alone. Go play some pinball or something. And I'm like, Dad, Dad, I'm pulling on his shirt. And he says, what do you want? And I said, Dad, do you know who you're sitting next to? He says, yeah, it's Maurice. I said, no. I said, that's Mad Dog Vachon.
I introduced Mike to him, and Mad Dog got him started into professional wrestling.
And he said, you want to meet him? And I said, no. And I started to turn around, and he grabbed me by the collar, and he pulled me back. And he said, Maurice, I'd like you to meet my son, Michael. And I shook his hand, and he asked me if I wanted to come to the wrestling matches at the Civic Auditorium. And I was like, of course. I'm used to watching him, laying in the front of the TV on a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock in my underwear, watching professional wrestling. And then they had, the Lone Ranger was on after that. And but I looked forward to every Sunday watching pro wrestling. He was such a mean, vicious heel, but in the bar, he was a really nice guy. So he gave my dad a couple tickets, and the show was at the Civic Auditorium like a week or two later. And he told my dad that after they started the first match to bring me down to the curtain, and he would bring me back with all the wrestlers, until after the intermission. and so which was like for an hour and a half or so. And so my dad took me down there and, met Maurice, and he took me back, and, the first guy I met was Hulk Hogan. And, then I met Andre the Giant. And, I remember, seeing Andre the Giant, and I was just looking at him like, man, this fucking guy is just humongous, I mean, just his presence was just, demanded respect. You just definitely didn't want to say the wrong thing, to Andre, but he was a really gentle soul inside, had a great heart. And so I met all the wrestlers. Maurice took me around, introduced me to all the wrestlers, and he said, all right, kid, he says, I gotta go to work. He says, if anybody asks you who you're with or what you're doing here, just tell them you're with the Mad Dog. And I said, okay. So I'm looking out the curtain, watching the match, and all of a sudden I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Greg Gagne. And he says, hey, kid, he says, what are you doing here? And in my best Mad Dog voice, I says, I'm with the Mad Dog, and he told me to tell anybody that comes up here to say I'm with him. And he says, okay, kid, you're fine, man. I'm sorry to bother you, But that was my first experience to be a part of the actual professional wrestling backstage and gotten to meet all the wrestlers. And at 10 years old, I thought that was, pretty cool.
I used to steal my mom's oil volet since I've been about 13 years old. She would always go in the bathroom wondering why her oil volet bottle was empty. And I would tell her, I'd say, Mom, your oil volet's running low, you need to buy some more. So she'd go to the store, she'd buy some more. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, Mom, your oil volet's running low, you need to... She's thinking, what the fuck? Where's all my oil volet going? And why are you telling me that I need to replace it every 2 or 3 weeks? And so finally she caught on that I was stealing her oil volet. I would use it every morning. I would put it on my face, my forehead, my cheeks. I'd rub it all over me. And even when I would go to Europe and I knew I was going to be gone for 8 months, I would take like 10 or 12 bottles of oil volet with me. So I would have the oil volet with me the whole time I was there. So after I get up and shower every morning, I could put my oil volet on and off and running with the day I went.
He always had a good inkling for sports, and he was athletic. And one day he come home from junior high. He was into hockey pretty good. He says, Dad, they want me to wrestle. It's only going to be a couple of weeks. Well, let's see, 40-some years later, we're still at it.
Just getting him to practices all the time was really tough. We had to split our time sometimes, and he'd take him, I'd pick him up. And
he was pretty new to the sport, but he was an athlete, so he took to what we were showing him pretty quick, and he was bigger than a lot of the kids that he wrestled. So he was squashing kids left and right, which was pretty promising. We didn't have that many guys his size to work his moves with, so oftentimes I had to end up wrestling. Weighing $142, taking on somebody 285 at the time. He was 285. This little bend in my ear here, I got cauliflower ear. When I was tight-waisting him, and I got my hand trapped underneath of his waist, and he rolled me, and I couldn't get my arm out, and he just rolled me like a steamroller, and he bent my ear over, and I got cauliflower ear out of that.
Wrestling, you started at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you got where you were going, and maybe since he was a heavyweight, he was always the last one to wrestle, so you were there till sometimes 6, 7 o'clock at night.
My name's Kurt Krychek. I've known Mike since about 1980.
83, 84, right?
Probably
84.
1984, junior high, Omaha South High.
My name is Joe DiBiase. I've known Mike, to be honest, really too fucking long, but I've known him since freshman year in high school. We went to Omaha Ryan together, wrestled together, played football together. This was before freshman year, because it was at Ryan Wrestling Club. So we're getting loose, and every fucking day this guy would come out of the thing and you're getting loose and he'd jump on you.
He'd pick on you, probably. I could just imagine.
No, just jump on you and want to wrestle with you. But he was so big you couldn't do nothing.
He had 33-inch thighs. This was as an 8th grader. He had 19-inch calves. He had a size 16 and a half neck, I think, at that time, probably bigger. He wore size triple E 13 shoes. He was just like a solid piece of granite. You weren't going to move him around very easily.
Fuck this motherfucker. We're going to get him. Well, back then, Ryan Wrestling, the wrestling room was in the basement of the high school.
And it had a bunch of big, huge pillars.
Concrete pillars. It was an
Like
old school.
Like 3 foot by 3 foot fucking wide. So you can hide behind them.
Hide behind.
And nobody can see you.
No. So I said, you know what? Fuck this. We're going to whack him real good. I'm tired of this shit. The next day of practice, getting ready to get loose, and Albanese's out there and he's fucking stretching, and there's the whole fucking team, everybody's hid behind a fucking pillar. Sure enough, here comes a big boy, bum, 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 jumps on the fucking Albanese, and it was on like Donkey Kong. Everybody come from behind.
Come
the
out of
pillars.
fucking everywhere. They come out of the ceiling and shit. They were all just fucking jumped on me, man. Just were fucking pummeling me.
Well, it would have taken a team of guys.
It was the whole team.
Well, then there was a time we were gone. We had 2 cars then. And we had gone out for the evening. Him and his sister were here alone. And we come home, and I said to Bobby, pulled in the driveway down there, and I says, where's the other car? We come in, we pulled our car that we were driving in the garage so he wouldn't know we were here. And we come in, and his sister says, I told him not to take it. And he was, 14 then? When he walked in the door, we're sitting here, and his mouth dropped open, his eyes got as big as saucers. He was really surprised that we were here. But he found out he wasn't to take the car. Especially at his age, no driver's license. He always liked to get in little jams, you know.
And again, Mike was always bigger than everybody, so he was a bully.
He wasn't that bad. He got into the normal scrapes like all kids do.
Anytime he didn't get his way, you know, he would try to, or he wouldn't try.
He'd bully you.
I used to go to a lot of parties and get in trouble with the guys we were with, and I always knew if I took Mike with me, because again, I mean, fuck, he was 330 pounds in high school. He was the biggest man that ever was in high school, and he was pretty athletic, and he was pretty agile, and he was pretty athletic for a big man like he is. So, always being in trouble like I was going to parties, I would make sure, you know, Mike, you want to go to a party? Do you want to go to a party? So we went to a party. I'd know that I could do whatever I wanted there because nobody's going to fuck with Mike.
You know, I'll admit it. You know, I thought my shit didn't stink. When I was in school, you know, it was like go out on Friday night, get in a fight, go out on Thursday night, get in a fight, go out on Saturday night, get in a fight. It's like every fucking night we went out on the weekend, we were getting in fights. And you know, playing sports in school and semi-pro football and stuff, it's just, I was getting in trouble. I mean, I was, you know, the toughest guy. I could say I was probably the toughest guy in Omaha for a long time. And what about, were you with us that time that we fucking jumped the fence in the zoo at nighttime?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was raining and we jumped the fence, so we were down there, you know, just walking through the zoo.
You jumped the fence with us?
Yeah, we were walking around the zoo at nighttime. The guys chasing us in the golf cart, so I'm fucking running, and they had them car stops, you know, them long pieces of concrete where you pull up in the parking lot and it stops your car. So they had like 30 or 40 of them stacked up flat on the street, and I'm running and I tripped over one, and then I landed on my knee. I fucking busted up my fucking knee. So I'm yelling, "Erk," because he's, you know, halfway up the fucking hill. He actually came back down and helped me and get up the hill, you know, because the guy who had his like flashlight was looking at us for us in the trees.
Yeah.
And so he fucking carried me up there. It took like 3 guys to push me over the fucking fence because I couldn't do it myself because my knee was fucked up.
Well, it's always amazing after they do grow up and maybe they're sitting around with their friends, and all of a sudden they start talking. And then all of a sudden you look at him and you say, "You did what?"
So anyway, so Mike being kind of a little bit of a bully with all of us friends. There was a group of us, you, me,
Probably like 8 of us.
Donnie, Jerry, Carrie, Gallagher.
Wow.
Remember you beat up Kurt Gallagher?
Yeah.
You beat Gallagher? Oh,
Yeah. In his yard.
No, at my parents' house.
Oh,
in the
that's
living
right.
room.
Oh, that's right. At the living room. Yeah, that's right. I forgot
We were
about
playing
that.
fucking spades
But I beat
again.
him up at his dad's house too.
We were playing spades again, and you didn't like something. I think somebody beat you out of 50 cents or something like that, and
You
fucking
whacked
got
him
all pissed
over
off.
50 cents.
It might have been a quarter.
This is my most coveted trophy from all my high school and late junior high wrestling. This is the only trophy that I've ever saved. And on it says, double world schoolboy champion, 1982, Mike Halac. And I was given this at the banquet of the Ryan Wrestling Club, my 8th grade year, for winning 2 world championships.
I remember.
And I was voted that year also the MVP of the entire wrestling team for the whole year. And so out of all the trophies that I won in all the weekend tournaments, all my hockey trophies throughout the years, this is the only trophy that I've ever saved. This was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in amateur wrestling. Was right here. This is right up to, winning state my junior year and working so hard to make it back to the state finals my senior year. And of course I have them medals. I haven't thrown them away. But yeah, so, this was the trophy that was given to me back in 1982. So I'm pretty proud of that trophy.
Trophy's 35 years old.
Yeah, almost as old as us, right?
Yeah.
I definitely have a lot of stories to tell. And the bad thing about it is they're all true.
We were out there partying all day long.
And then you had a party.
And then had a party, and like a couple hundred people showed up late at night.
Yep.
Like after 8, 9 o'clock when
Yep.
it was dark.
Yep.
And so we're outside partying, and my uncle was supposed to be the chaperone of the party. Well, he was downstairs in the basement smoking pot with my friends. So we're outside and we're having a party. Well, this car kept driving up and down the street really fast, And so Greg Gonzalez yells at the lady, "Hey, slow the down, will ya?" And so now he was gonna go talk to the bitch, right?
Greg was?
Yeah, because she got smart with him. And so he's like, "I'm not going to take that off no bitch." He says, "I'm going down there." And I says, "Listen, man, it's my house, my party. I'll take care of it." I walk over there and I says, "Hey, lady," I says, "can you slow the down, please?" I says, I'm having a party. I don't really want the cops around here. I don't want you drawing attention." She says, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was him. It was him." And I was like, "Who the fuck is him?" And so I turned around and it was like this huge fucking Charles Manson and shit. And he says, "Who the fuck are you and what the fuck do you want?" And I was like, "Hey man, all I was trying to do was when I went like this, I seen something coming in the fucking air towards my fucking head, and I put my hand up, and the fucking axe fucking wrapped around my hand and cut my hand."
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was an axe at the time.
Right.
And it ended up being a double-sided axe, fireman's axe.
Yeah.
And so grabbed a hold of it, and we're fucking shuffling around and shit. So finally I let go with my right hand. I punched him, fucking knocked him down, and so I went after the fucking broad. She goes in the house, and so I couldn't get in the house. I come back to the guy. He's now getting up, standing with the fucking axe, and so now we both grab it again. And so now she comes out of the house with the knife, and she stabs me in this forearm and over here in this forearm. Stabbed me twice in each arm, once in each arm. We struggled over. He had a pickup truck in the driveway, so we struggled over to the pickup truck, and I got the axe down on the ground because I couldn't see it because it was completely fucking dark. Because I was bashing his fucking head up against the truck and shit, man.
And that's when you seen on the
And
blood,
so-
you
and
thought
so-
the blood was from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I reached down and I cut the inside of my hand on the axe, and that's when I knew it was a f***ing axe. He's trying to kill me, right? So now I'm trying to kill him. I'm bashing his head up against the truck. I'm punching him with the hand that's busted wide open. And she comes, the f***ing broad comes over. She says, "You're killing him, you're killing him." And she stabbed me right in the f***ing back. I get up from there, man. So I look at myself and I'm just covered in f***ing blood. I walked back to the house, and every step I took, I could feel the blood pumping out of my back. And I said, "Hey, can somebody help me? Call the police." And all of a sudden, some broad seen me covered in blood. And so she starts screaming bloody murder. The guy is now at the end of the driveway with the axe, saying, "Who wants some more? I'll kill all you motherfuckers." I think it was Dave Randall and Richie Gonzalez. One of them grabbed the drain pipe off the house and hit him with it in the leg, and it just, the pipe just bent around. So then they went to the car and got their baseball bats, and they beat him down, man. He was down, and then you could hear sirens coming. The dude went to jail because they charged him with attempted murder. Him and his old lady. They dropped all the charges. 10 years later, I'm wrestling over in Europe, and I get a phone call from my dad. He says, "I got some good news for you." I says, "What's that?" He says, "You know your buddy Cowboy?" And I says, "Yeah." They says, "He's dead."
That was his name, Cowboy?
Cowboy, yeah, it was his nickname. And they said, he's dead. And I says, "He's dead." I said, "It couldn't happen to a nicer asshole." I said, "What happened?" And he got in a shootout with the cops, and the cops shot him and killed him.
And then we sent him down to Florida. I can't remember the guy that was training him down there, but he was in Tampa.
By the name of Larry Malenko. Moved into a nice apartment. You know, he got me a job at a local nightclub. He owned a Gold's Gym down there, so I had a gym I could train in free every day, and it cost me $5,000 to be trained to be a pro wrestler. And I ended up spending 10 and a half, 11 months down in Tampa, Florida, learning the trade. And my first wrestling match was actually in camp, and I got 25 hours, and I wrestled a guy by the name of Bart Gunn. And I remember halfway through the match, I had him up against the ropes, and I shot him in, and I told him to duck the clothesline and take the big elbow, and he didn't hear the part duck the clothesline. And so when I shot him in, he came off the ropes, I clotheslined him and hit him right across the bridge of his nose and broke his nose in about 3 pieces. Blood just, went everywhere. And 5 years later, I'm wrestling with him up again in the WWF. I told him, I said, duck the clothesline and do whatever. And he said, yeah. He says, "This time I'll make sure I don't forget to duck the clothesline." He says, "You're not breaking my nose twice, you f***er." And I was like, okay. I says, the first time wasn't my fault either, but, hey, it happens. Shit happens, because everything we do in the ring is real. Accidents happen sometimes, you might break your leg on accident, or you might break your nose or break your neck. Them chairs are real. Them tables are real. You're actually getting hit with the chair or going through tables, and, you do feel that shit. So, your body literally takes a pounding every single day that you're in the ring.
The vacuum cleaner! Eureka!
You have to be a certain kind of crazy and weird human being to want to be a professional wrestler, put it that way. After I had a couple matches in training camp, I was already down there for like 11 months, and, I was ready to be a pro wrestler. I was ready to step out in the world and, work for the independents or, find a wrestling job somewhere. And so I came back to Nebraska. There was a character on TV for the WCW, PN News, the Rat Master. we looked so much alike that my parents were actually getting phone calls from my aunts and uncles that lived around the country and said, "Hey, is that Mike on TV?" I don't know, 2-3 days went by and my phone rings. And he says, "Oh, can I speak to Mike?" I said, "This is him." He said, "Mike," he says, "this is Paul New, PN News." He says, "How you doing?" I says, "Great." He says, "I understand that we look alike, that we could be brothers." And he says, "I'll be in Omaha with the WCW in a couple weeks." He says, "You can hang out with me all weekend. We'll rent a couple of hotel rooms and stuff." And so I met him at the airport for the first time, man. And it was just crazy how much, we looked alike at that time. And I mean, we could have been twins, I mean, people used to ask us when they'd see us, they'd say, "Hey, are you guys brothers?" And we'd say, "No, we're sisters." So I picked him up, and on the way back, there was, he asked me if, I could bring a couple guys back to Omaha with us. And I said, "Sure." And one of the guys was Robert Gibson and the Junkyard Dog. And so they were both sitting in the back seat. The closer we got to Omaha, Junkyard Dog says, "Hey man," he says, "do you know where we can get some cocaine or some crack?" And I was like, "No, I don't really do anything like that." I says, "We can go to the hood." And he says, "Sure, man." He says, "When we get back to Omaha," he says, "go right to the hood." He says, "I want to get some crack tonight, man, party a little bit." He says, "We got a couple days off." I said, "Okay." So we ended up coming back to Omaha, and I went down to like 24th and Hamilton, and back then that was like, the center, the start of the edge of the hood, So I drove around a little bit and seen a guy on the corner and asked him if, we could, get some crack, and, he wanted 200 hours worth. And he was like, "Are you guys the police? We got 4 different guys in the car. Do we look like we're the fucking police?" And he says, "Well," he says, "you can't really, tell these days." He says, "They really, use a lot of different tricks to try and get us, And Junkyard Dog fucking sticks his head out the window. He says, "Hey, brother," he says, "we're not the fucking police, and I want 200 hours worth of crack." The guy looked at him. He says, "I know you from somewhere." And JYD says, "You do?" And he says, "Yeah." "Are you a pro wrestler?" JYD says, "Yeah, I've been known to wrestle a little bit." "You're the Junkyard Dog, aren't you?" He says, "Yeah, man. Whoa, 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 whoa." And the guy said, "Okay, man." He says, "I'll tell you what," he says, "I don't got that much on me." He says, "But come back here in 10 minutes, and he says, "and I'll have it. So meet back here in 10 minutes. I said, "Okay." So we drove around for, block a couple times. We went back there 10 minutes later and gave him 200 hours, got the fucking crack, and dropped him off at their hotel. And then I took Paul back to his hotel, and, that was the night. But they ended up staying up all night fucking doing crack, I guess, I don't know how much 200 hours worth of crack is, but I'm sure it's not a little bit, and so needless to say, they were probably up for a day or two, So anyway, after that trip with PN News, he says, "I'm going to call my boss over in Europe." And, they used to do Germany, Austria, England, and France. He said, "Sure, give me my number." He says, "I can use another big heavyweight." And Paul said, "Whatever you do," he says, "tell him you've been wrestling for 2 years." I'm just 21 years old, I'm like super stoked to be going to Europe and wrestling, I'm just unbelievably, ecstatic. I get to Germany. The town was Dortmund, Germany, and the arena that we were wrestling in held about 9,000 people. It was a jam-packed house on a Saturday night, and myself, I had Dave Fit Finlay in my corner, and you might recognize the name Dave Fit Finlay from the WWF. He was the Irishman that ran around with the little midget hornswoggle, and they were all dressed in green, and he used to carry a shillelagh with him. And we had to do like 8.5 rounds, and we wrestled in rounds over in Europe. 15 rounds of wrestling, and each round was 4 minutes long, and you had a minute break in between. So if you had to go 15 rounds, you were literally wrestling for a whole hour. I was so nervous and tired. I was breathing out of my ass after like the first 2 rounds, and I was just totally gassed. And it was like the end of the 3rd round, and I was completely fucking lost. I come back to the corner, and Dave was fanning me with the towel. He says, "Hey, Mike," he says, "how long you been in the business?" I was like, 2 years. So I'm going to ask you one more time, and he says, "If you tell me 2 years again," he says, "I'm going to knock you out where you fucking stand." He says, how long you been wrestling, kid? I said, this is my first match. He said, what? We could have made it a lot easier, he said. It's your first fucking match? And I said, yeah. He says, well, he said, tell you what, he said, it's time to get some heat. He said, when the bell rings and the round starts, he says, go right over and spit on his flag. And he was a French Canadian, the champion was, you know? And I was like, you can't do that. That's like, you know, that's not moral. He said, this is professional wrestling, kid. Anything goes. I'm like, okay, Dave. And so I went over there, man, and the bell rang, and I went over there and fucking spit on his flag. And the crowd went nuts, man, start throwing shit in the ring. And got through the match, and the rest was history. You know, I made $5,000, and, you know, I was fucking happier than a pig in shit. You know, I'm like, fucking hey, man, I got through it, you know. Fucking made $5,000 for, you know, half hour's work. You know, fucking life is great. You know, it doesn't get any better than this. You know, I'm in a different country. You know, people are speaking a different language. The beer's fucking great. The women are beautiful. You know, I didn't have a care in the world at that time. So I'd go back, you know, year after year.
Well, I bragged about him a lot. You know, that we had, you know, not everybody goes on to the professional ranks.
I had a good friend of mine die in the ring in my arms in Bremen, Germany in 1993. Larry Cameron, Minneapolis native. He had a heart attack in the middle of the ring and never came back from it. Died working, giving his life up to entertain people. I remember when he died and just being in shock. You know, we just stood there right next to him for probably a half hour, 45 minutes. And they'd already tried bringing him back and giving him the paddles, but he was gone. And in that little short of a time, I watched this guy of black color turn to an ash gray. It was the last week we were there in Europe, and it was a week before Christmas, and the boss gave us an opportunity to stay or to go because he said the show must go on. And for me, there was nothing more important than my buddy's life, and nothing in me could have made me want to finish the next 4 days of wrestling out. It just didn't mean anything to me. I just lost my good friend. You know, it was, not a time to celebrate. You know, it was a time to mourn. And, I can understand, when people die, people want to have a celebration of life. But there was no celebrating there, and it left kind of a bad taste in my mouth. And I ended up coming home and driving up to Minnesota to do a memorial match. They had a memorial match up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and all the proceeds went to Larry's family and his kids and stuff. And they were going to pay me like $400. I took the $400 and give it back to them. And that was just my way of, kind of giving back to Larry and, his kids and his family. Got a lot of memories, a lot of good memories, but that was definitely my darkest day in Europe. I was 25, 26 years old, man. I was, on top of the world. I was like, oh my God, I'm wrestling, for the WWF. They decided they wanted to give me a character, half man, half beast, and they wanted to put this big giant bullhead on me. they wanted to have this bullhead, shoot fire and smoke and everything. And Vince probably spent $100,000 on this fucking bullhead that I only wore like 5-6 times. They got all done with it, and it looked like fucking Bessie the cow. My first match was in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I had to wrestle a guy by the name of Buck Quartermain. I'm in the gorilla position, which is right next to the monitors, which is you're getting ready to go out and do your business. And I'm standing there, and Vince McMahon's standing there, and he says, "Is anybody?" And I got this fucking bullhead on, and I'm talking to him through the mouth, and he looks at the guys at the monitors, and he says, "Has anybody worked with this kid on how he's going to get in and out of the ring with this fucking gigantic thing on?" And they said, "No, Vince." And he said, "Well, fuck," he says, "we got to scratch the match," he says. And I grabbed Vince by the arms, and I'm talking to him through the mouth of this bullhead, and I said, "Vince, I got this." I said, "Don't worry about it." And he says, "Well, how you going to do it, kid? What's your plan?" I says, "I'm going to go up the corner, and then I'm going to crawl back down the corner, and I'll be in the ring." I crawl up the corner very gingerly, of course, because I'm not the high-flying type of character. I don't fly around and shit, so. Plus, I'm afraid of heights anyway. And, the ring's already, 4 foot off the ground as it is. And you add another 4 or 5 feet for the rope. So when you get up on the top rope, you're already 9 feet up in the air. So I went up and got down. And, the thing about the WWF is, at that time they had what you call jobbers. And these were guys that were there just to make the big names look even better. So you'd go out there and you'd just beat the shit out of these guys for 2 or 3 minutes. And some of them you might have maybe a 5-6 minute match with, but you just fucking would eat them for lunch and just beat the shit out of them and then pin them. And so that's what I did to Buck Quartermain. I remember I was wrestling him, and I did this thing where I call it the forklift. And I'd shoot the guy into the turnbuckle, and he'd bounce out, and I'd pick him up underneath his arms, and I would drive him right back into the fucking corner that he came out of. And the first time that I picked him up for the forklift and drove him back, I set him so high into the corner that he hit his head on the fucking post and split the back of his head wide open. And so when he came out of the fucking corner, I give him a forearm, and I see fucking blood everywhere, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. And the referee said, "Well, you fucking really took care of this one, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." I says, "Shit happens." He says, "You're right about that." And we continued the match, and I beat the shit out of him for a couple minutes and pinned him, and that was it. So for the first 6 or 8 matches, that's what I did. I wrestled a bunch of jobbers. They wanted to build me up because the Royal Rumble was starting at the end of January. The bullhead just was not cutting it. So what they decided to do was they decided to change my wrestling singlet, my boots, change my whole costume. They decided to cut horns in the side of my head like the St. Louis Rams football helmet. And then I would paint my face from my hairline down to my nose, so it looked like I had, 2 ram horns on the top of my head. And that was, Mantaur from the Owl of Crete, half man, half beast. And it really started to take off. I was in the Royal Rumble, and at one time in the Royal Rumble, there was only myself, Shawn Michaels, the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, and Lex Luger. We were the only 4 guys in the ring. And that was quite a first experience for me because, me being in the company for less than a month was in the ring with 3 of the top superstars in professional wrestling history. So I was fucking ecstatic. My character was really starting to take off.
We knew in advance when he was going to be on and when he wasn't, so you kind of tuned into the TV.
Well, we went when he was in Omaha too. They had the WWF here, and we went in to watch him wrestle here. And that was exciting.
Me and Mantaur wrestled quite a bit too for a while when he came in. And we had a pretty good match we were doing on house shows. And I always had fun working with him. He was a big dude. He worked a little snug, not stiff, but you knew he was there. But man, he could move good for a big guy too. But we had this spot where it was just kind of like the spot I was doing with Triple H where he would backdrop me. It was just something we did every night. Every night we did it. And this spot was, I would make a comeback, do the old elbows to the gut, hit the ropes, come off, boom, boom, whatever. Hit the ropes. He would throw the knee to the gut, and I would do the flip forward. Well, on this particular night, we did the thing, and I came up. I made the comeback. I elbowed him in the stomach a bunch of times. I hit the ropes. I came off. He didn't hit me with the knee that I was expecting, and I took the front flip bump anyway. So it was like an invisible knee to the gut.
So after that, I started wrestling, bigger names, and he was wrestling Lawrence Taylor at WrestleMania, and I had to wrestle Bam Bam a week before WrestleMania. Bam Bam and I went out there, and one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet. Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Chris Benoit. These guys, we're all good-hearted guys. Because there's some real pricks in the business, like fucking Scott Hall and piece of shit, and Kevin Nash, Triple H is a fucking dick.
They had these Xanax bars, 2 milligrams, a sleeping pill. It's a very powerful pill. And I put it in his drink. But what I did is I held it in my hand and looked at him until he looked at me. And I laughed as I dropped it in his drink. So he saw me do it. And he said, I ain't fucking scared. And he drank it. This son of a bitch ended up taking 4 of these. And it didn't even faze him. He just kind of we watched him, he just kind of walked off to his plane, to his flight. That was one of the most amazing things I ever saw, though. I tried to dose him up with Xanax, and he was right. He had every right to not be scared because it didn't affect him.
So I had to wrestle Scott Hall, and he just come out of drug rehab for 3 months, and that was like the 25th time he was in drug rehab. He was a fucking drug addict and a drunk. And so when he came out of drug rehab, he was, gonna get built back up to wrestle Double J again for, a rematch for the belt. And that was one of his first matches out of drug rehab. We started wrestling, and it came to a spot to where we went to lock up, and Scott Hall ducked a couple times, and the second time he ducked, he fucking open hand slapped me, and motherfucker slapped me, tried to knock me out with an open hand. That's how fucking hard he hit me. I seen stars. I spun around to the right, shook my head a couple times, shook that shit off, and came right back at him. But after that, I was pissed off, man, because he took a fucking liberty, took a cheap shot at me, tried to fucking knock me out, the motherfucker. On live TV, and, so I was pissed off, and so, everything that I was doing after that, I was fucking laying that shit in. If I had to chop him, I was really chopping. If I had to forearm smash him, I tried to fucking drive my fucking forearm right through his fucking back, and Vince could see what was going on in the back, and so he told the referee, because all the refs have earpieces in, he told the ref, he said, tell them 2 fuckers to save that shit for the locker room. He says, they're on live TV. And so the referee said, Vince said to cool it down, guys, and save that shit for the back. He says, you're on live TV. He said, so get back to work. And so after that, we kind of cooled down and finished the match. And, I was the first one out of the ring because that was the first time, second time I lost. The first time was with Bam Bam Bigelow. Then I wrestled Razor, and I got counted out. I went to charge him, went to do the bull charge, and he sidestepped me, threw me over the top rope, and I landed on the road dog, and we ended up getting counted out. So, he didn't pin me or anything like that. I got counted out. I was the first one back in the locker room, and soon as Scott Hall walked through the fucking curtain, man, I went up and got in his face and I said, "You think you're tough, motherfucker?" I said, "Try and fucking slap me now, bitch." I said, "I'll fucking knock your fucking ass out." And, you know, we started fucking jawing at each other, you know, and started pushing and shoving. And, you know, just as the punches were getting ready to start flying, the agents fucking grabbed us and, you know, pulled us apart. And, you know, and I was fucking pissed, man. You know, I mean, that was really the very first time in my wrestling career that somebody actually tried to fucking hurt me. I'm trying to build my character up, and I understand, you know, and that's what I told him. I said, "Listen," I says, "you're already established." I said, "You just came out of drug rehab. You're trying to get the belt back." I said, "I get it." I said, "But I'm new to this company, and I got a name and a reputation that I want to build up too."
Nobody in wrestling likes anyone to get anything else. Everybody's jealous of everybody. Everybody is insecure, needy, arrogant, sensitive, group of cunts. We all are. And if you got one thing, you get 30 seconds of television time, I guarantee you there's 100 people in the back that want that 30 seconds of television time. Even though they did nothing with you on that 30 seconds of television time. You were standing in the background of a vignette that featured 100 other guys, and they just saw the back of you. Somebody in the back saw you and went, "Why am I not that guy?" So now everybody in the locker room is all going, "Yeah, this BS, man. These guys, they just get to go on a show and they don't have to pay no dues." Everybody pays dues in this business. Don't fool yourself. Everybody pays dues in this business.
I had to wrestle Bob Sparkplug Holly, and, you know, nothing against, you know, Bob Holly, but, you know, he's a piece of shit too. He's a fucking snitch. You know, he's a fucking stooge. You know, once he beat me, I knew that was the end of Mantaur. And, so I just, you know, went in the locker room, I changed my fucking clothes, got in my rent-a-car, went right to the airport and flew back to Nebraska. And, because I wasn't, you know, going to let, you know, Vince, you know, job me out, you know, and just fucking beat me every fucking week on television until my contract was up, you know. And I wrestled probably half a dozen times after that, and then I was just done and, you know, got paid till the end of my contract. And so that was, you know, that was the end of Mantaur. I was home for about 3 or 4 months, and I was wondering what my next move was. I got a call from Otto Vance, the wrestling promoter in Europe, asked me to come back over. They just started Vienna, Austria for like 76 straight days. So I go back over there and I walk in the locker room and I'm saying hello to all the boys. And, you know, you ever get this feeling where there's a big elephant in the room and you can't see the fucking elephant, but you know it's there somewhere. And so that's the kind of feeling that I got in the back of my head. Like, you know, it's everybody's saying hello to me, but there's, you know, there's this underlying fucking atmosphere that everybody's waiting to hear the pin drop. It's just that kind of that quiet. So me and Paul we're tag partners, you know, we're close, we're like brothers. And at one time, you know, we looked like twins. So sitting at the table was Paul and Dave, and they had a spot for me there at the end of the table. So I sit down, and all of a sudden Dave says, "You gonna tell him or you want me to?" And I'm looking at both of them like, you know, what the hell are you talking about? Paul says, "I'll tell him." He says, "Chubbs," he says, "it's great to see you. You know I love you like a brother." He says, "You know Monica?" And I says, "Yeah, man." I says, "That's my number one bird." I said, I can't wait to see her again." And he says, "Well," he says, "she's been coming to the show." I says, "Oh," I said, "She has? You met her?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "I've met her, all right." He says, "Ironically," he says, "she thought I was you, and so I've been f***ing your bird for 2 weeks." I'm like, "You rotten motherfucker," you know? This was coming from my best friend. That's one of the reasons why I was excited to go back, you know, because I knew that I'd be hanging out with Monica for 8 months, you know? You know, the story goes, they were in the ring and she came to the wrestling show and she looked in the ring, and when she seen Paul, she instantly thought it was me. But, you know, we both, you know, had the same kind of body structure, and we're both bald and have goatees, and we just look like we're brothers, you know? So Paul can see this bird way in the back of the arena. She's smiling from ear to ear, and he was like, damn, he was like, Fit, he said, who's that fucking bird over there? And Dave says, oh, he says, that's Chubby's bird. That's Monica. If she asks you, you know, where your gold chain is, tell her you lost it. And if she asks you how your son is doing, tell her he's doing okay. And so Dave kind of instigated it. Music's playing, they're walking out of the fucking ring, and I guess the closer that they're getting to Monica, she's just bouncing on her toes, and she's just getting excited, you know. So he comes walking around the corner, and she jumps up in his arms. Oh, Michael, I love you, I miss you, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, you know, he's like, what do I do here? So he was like, pretty good, you know, good looking girl here, man. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, she was probably about a 9.5. You know, all the boys were, you know, calling Paul, you know, Mike, hey, what's up, Chubbs, you know, and shit like that. So they were all in on it, and, you know, they knew what was going on. And, you know, Paul, we're sitting there, and I'm just shaking my head, and Paul's like, yeah, he says, I've been sleeping with Monica since the tournament started. He said she's been staying with me out of the camping place. And I'm just like, boy. They said, well, she's supposed to be here tonight. So she's down there saying hello to Paul and Dave and Manuela, you know, hugging him, you know, kissing him, holding his hand and shit. And I open up the door, and I'm like, hello, everybody. What's going on? Great to see everyone. And she hears my voice. Her fucking eyes bulged out of her head. Her fucking jaw hit the ground. She turned around, and as soon as she turned around and seen me, she just screamed bloody murder. And while she's screaming, she's looking at Dave and Paul and looking back at me, and she's just screaming her fucking head off. And she takes off and crying and into this bar. And, you know, they look at me, and I'm looking at them, and they're like, you know, Chubby, go get her. And I was like, listen, I didn't do nothing here. I said, I just fucking walked up. I said, you know, what do you guys should be going over there? I said, Chubby, she's your bird, man. Go, you know, save the day. And so I go in, and I'm talking to her, and she's like, I'm sorry. She says, I knew it wasn't you. She says, but they kept saying, you know, calling you by your name, and I kept calling you Mike and Mike. She says, I kept telling Manuela, telling her, saying there's something different about him. There's just something different about him. I don't know what it is. You know, there's just something different about him. She's crying and screaming and just unbelievably upset. So Paul comes in the bar, and so she naturally sees him, and she cusses him out on the way out the door and called him a fat swine, a fat pig. And she fucking bolts out, and she's running down and around and out the gate to the street. So I chased after her and got her calmed down, and she ended up staying for the show. And I knew at that point, you know, I was done with her, man. I was pissed off. How could you make that mistake? But, you know, I could see that why she could make that mistake. I totally understand. And it was just her reaction. I mean, it was fucking priceless, man. I honestly, to this day, I could say that if that doesn't happen, I'm probably married to her today. She's probably living over here with me right now. We probably got a couple kids together.
It was leave in June, come back in December. Be here until, you know, April or May, and then head back out again. You know, that was his livelihood for a while. So
I was still, you know, wrestling over in Europe. I would, you know, go to England for 6 months and, you know, wrestle over in England. I would, you know, go to Belgium and Italy and, you know, France and wrestle over there for a few months. And so I would travel around and being in one town and for 76 straight nights, wrestling in the same hall in front of the same people 76 nights in a row. And for the most part, for 5-6 days a week, it was packed. On the weekends, it was standing room only. You know, they had 5,000-6,000 people, man, fucking jammed in a fucking tent. So after I got married, the wrestling had kind of dried up, and I had just created this new Turkish character. My wife was 100% Turkish, and so I decided to do a Turkish character and come out to the ring to like Turkish belly dancing music. My ex-wife was an authentic Turkish belly dancer. I designed the character myself and came over and was gonna pitch it to the WWE, WCW. So we got married, and you know, we made the move back to the States. Had my 2 youngest daughters with her.
He's like a totally different person when he's wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's my dad, but when he's wrestling, like, he's in like his zone. Like, that's what he likes to do. It's his passion. He's really good at it, but caused him a lot of pain.
This was probably 2003, so I continued to train in the gym, and at that time I was in the best shape of my life. I was like 342 pounds and had a 6-pack, and you know, I really worked a lot on my abs back then. And just as we were getting ready to show him the gimmick, somebody ran through a light and hit us head on. I dislocated my right wrist, and so I had 3 pins in my wrist for like 10 months, had my arm in a full cast for 9 of them months. So yeah, so I get divorced from my wife and fell in kind of to a depression. I didn't work or nothing for 6-8 months. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna do what makes me happy. I'm gonna start fucking wrestling again. So I bought a ring and fixed it up and opened up my company. Had a few shows, and then that's when I found out that C6 was touching my spinal cord, and my career was over. They just tell me right then and there that, you know, I have to quit wrestling and I have to stop going to the gym, and I gotta get this fixed, but my back's fucked up at the same time, and you know, I can't feel my fucking forearms and my hands and my fingers because my nerves are compressed in my elbows. I mean, I was in bad sorts then, and so I ended up retiring and did my last show, and then like 2 months later I had surgery on my elbows, and that led to neck surgery. You know, I got a plate in 5, 6, and 7 in my neck. 2 through 4 are still fused together naturally through corrosion in my neck. And then I've had major back surgery. 3, 4, and 5 in my lower back are just crushed.
There's a lot of stuff he can't do.
Plus the surgeries he's had to go through.
He's kind of dependent on me.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts, but it's doable. Pretty much, for a while I was doing the lawn. Anything breaks at the house, I'd take care of that. Just maintenance, stuff like that.
They fucking still cook him dinner.
Yeah.
They'll cook me dinner every now and then, bring it down.
All the time.
No, I help out. If he drops something, I'll pick it up. Or if he's like hurting and he left something somewhere, I'll usually go get it.
He can't shave himself, so about once a week I have to come down and shave his head, all that stuff. So it's a little bit of a chore, but it works.
You know, I'm on 100% disability today because of my professional wrestling career. I can't stand on my feet for more than 10 minutes. I can't walk half a mile. There's a lot of things that I'm not able to do that I never used to have to think about doing. I just would do them. I can't play catch with my kids. I can't help my daughters hit the volleyball around. You know, I can't, my body just doesn't move like that anymore. You know, it's slow and steady for me. My daily life consists of going to physical therapy 3 times a week for my back, doing little things around the house, and trying to stay cool. Try to keep from falling down the fucking stairs or slipping in the shower, or, you know, figuring out how am I gonna get fully dressed today.
Usually if we're going somewhere or he has an appointment or something, I usually have to help him put his shoes and socks on because he can't bend over and do it himself.
For those of you who don't know what CTE syndrome is, it's chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which stands for one too many concussions. I've probably had anywhere from 15 to 20 concussions in my lifetime. And 99% of them were in professional wrestling. I know that I'm starting to show early signs of CTE syndrome. Memory loss is the biggest thing. If I don't write it down, I'm going to forget about it. I've left the house 3 or 4 times in a row and forgetting the same thing that I went back for the last 3 previous times, and finally remembered on the 4th time to grab it. You know, so little things like that are kind of disturbing.
There's a lot of times he don't leave this house for how long?
A couple days?
Several days at a time. You don't leave. You sit right in that chair right there and you do not leave. Normal people don't do that. Normal people fucking have to get out. You do not have to get out. And the reason you don't get out is because I think you let the pressures of the world fucking you have to change something in the entire world get to you.
A lot of drug use going on, you know, and wrestling, you know, from steroids to painkillers to muscle relaxers, you know, cocaine, you know, alcohol, you know, whatever, marijuana, whatever you wanted, you know, they had.
It was about, now this is a dark time for Mike here. It's about, actually, you should leave. Yeah. So this is a little bit of a dark time for Mike. He comes down to my bar one day, and I hadn't seen him in a while. You know, still buddies. You know what I mean? It's good friends. You don't have to see him every day to still be good friends with him. He comes down. We're sitting at the bar with bullshit, sitting like this, and he says he's having some problems at home. He's going through a little bit of a tough thing with his wife, and she's moved out or something like that, or she's got a boyfriend, they're getting divorced, or they are divorced, or something that nature, and says you know, that somebody's coming by the house here and shooting it up. He's like, hey man, can you get me a fucking firearm? No, I don't know nothing about firearms. You know, I'm just got out of prison myself, and this is probably about 2010. It was 2010. I'd been out for.
Yeah, that's when I got divorced.
Yep. I says, no, man, I don't know anything about guns. You know, I don't know nothing about them. Nor am I going to get you. What's going on? And he tells me the story, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck I know to tell you. Phone rings, and the bartender comes over, and she says, hey, there's a lady on the phone. Kurt wants to talk to you. Who? Marcia. Well, Marcia's Mike's mom. So she says to me, are you sitting with Mike? I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. Does he tell you what he wants? I said, yeah. She said, did he tell you what he's gonna do? Yeah. She said, well, he's gonna fucking shoot himself. Okay. Hey, man, you want to go downstairs and smoke a joint? Let's go downstairs. So we go downstairs. I had a little bit of weed. We set up my desk and we rolled a joint. And I says to him, hey, man, what the f*** is going on, dude? Your mom tells me you're going to commit suicide. And he breaks down and he starts crying to me and telling me what's going on and, you know, about how this wife and whatever and the boyfriend and, you know, he can't take it no more and he's going to kill her and he's going to kill himself and, you know, life is bad and all this bullshit. Now, again, I'm thinking of this guy as this larger than life character who was tougher than anything and I've ever, you know, any person I've ever been around. You know, I mean, I always take Mike and know that I can do anything I want to anybody, knowing who's going to do something to this guy. Nobody. I'll whip everybody's ass. So when he tells me this, and I'm sitting there, and I remember telling him, I said, listen, man, who the f*** are you? Who is this guy? I don't even know who you are sitting in front of me. Why are you talking like this? Where's the dude I know? Because you're talking like some weak pussy is what you're talking like, and I don't understand what you're saying. You want to, because I mean, suicide. You know, I don't think that way. So for him to be thinking that way, this isn't Mike Halac that I know. This is some fucking, you know, somebody who's lost. You know, you're gonna go through the drive-through and fucking kill your wife. I mean, what the is this shit, dude? Like, what the are you talking about? And you're telling me you're going to do this, and then you want me to get you a gun? Are you fucking out of your mind?
Well, you fucking saved me, man. I mean, you know, you helped a good friend out the way you're supposed to.
Well, and I just see it as, you know, trying to talk some fucking sense into you.
That meant a lot to me, you know.
Talking some sense into you because what
you're
saying doesn't make any sense. Well, because what you're saying didn't make any sense to me.
I was wrestling for probably 3 years.
So about 2014 is when
Yeah.
told you.
2014 into 2015. Okay, so we'll start with, you know, the wrestling company.
Okay.
On TV, Vince McMahon's character is an asshole. And in real life, Vincent Kennedy McMahon is an asshole. Well, for example, if one of the performers would die on his watch, then he would reach out to the family and he would, you know, tell them how, you know, great of an asset the person was to the company, and he would offer the family a certain amount of money, and then he would take care of the funeral expenses, and he would have the body cremated. So that way, you know, there was no brain to study. He got rid of all the evidence. And 12 people have died in the last 3 years of our lawsuit. And we have received 8 of their brains, 8 out of the 12. And all 8 out of the 12 that we have received, all their brains have tested positive for CTE. Yeah, it's in our contracts, you know, that we're self-employed contractors. But when you think about it, when you break it down, you know, there is an employee and employer relationship. Vince McMahon, he pays for our flights, let's say to LA, for example. He would pay for my flight from Omaha to LA, and he would tell us what arena we're wrestling in. He would tell us what night we're wrestling. He would tell us what time. He would tell us what we have to wear, our costume, for example. He would tell us who we're wrestling. He would tell us how long we're wrestling for. And them are the kinds of things that an employer tells his employees and that does for his employees. But yet, we're still considered self-employed contractors. Yeah, the contracts, you know, that Vince makes you sign states that when you sign the contract that you're only allowed to wrestle for the WWE and the WWE only. You're not able to go out and wrestle for, you know, other companies, other independent companies around the country or around the world. You're not able to go wrestle for anybody else except for the WWE. And so basically when you sign this self-employed contract, he wants to act like you're self-employed, but yet he wants to have all rights to everything that you do. So he wants to, in a sense, say you're self-employed, but you are assigned to him to wrestle exclusively, and that only Vince McMahon will you work for. So, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. It makes really no sense when you think about it. And of course, you know, if you get hurt on the job, when I almost broke my neck in Louisville, Kentucky, I called the office and spoke to Vince, and he was like, well, you're on your own, kid. He says, I'm not, you know, covering any hotel bills or expenses for you. And I was like, okay. I was like, fuck you, motherfucker. I'm going home. See you later. Click. And I got on the next plane back to Nebraska. You know, came in and seen my doctor here, and ended up in a neck brace for 3 months. You know, if you're not under a guaranteed contract, you're sitting at home and you don't have any money coming in to pay your bills. I mean, you are literally 100% on your own.
If you're working for somebody and you get hurt, that's workman's comp. You know, I don't see any difference. They say that these guys are independent contractors, but they're bringing in an awful lot of money for the WWE. You would think there'd be some loyalty there and some help for those guys.
And the WWE guys were fucking wrestling injured every night of the week. You know, you're on the road seven nights a week, and you know, you haven't been home but for 3 days in the last 30, and your body's all beat up, and you got a bad shoulder and a bad knee and a fucking twisted ankle, and you know, you need rest, you know, you need R&R, time to heal. Well, you don't have that time. You know, you got to get your ass out there and work, or you're not going to have a job, because there's 100 guys behind you that want your spot. And so, you know, you have to do, you know, what the boss tells you to do. And that boss is Vincent Kennedy McMahon. He has become a billionaire on his wrestlers' broken backs.
I'd say do the right thing. You know, guys sacrifice everything, put it on the line when they're young. They should expect that there should be something at the end of the line for them. That they should be able to stand up and take account for the injuries that these guys have sustained, and pay for it, the treatments they need.
As long as you can make some money, he's gonna try and use you for however much amount of money you can make him. And once he's done with you, he's gonna fucking throw you to the wolves, just like he's done hundreds of people before me, and including me. I went in the hospital last September. So they admitted me, told me it was my gallbladder, told me it was, infected, had stones in it. They're giving me, 1 milligram of Dilaudid every 5 to 6 hours for pain. And, I'm still getting my Oxycontin 40s and my Oxycodone 10s and, my other medications. I'm still getting them every day. And so with the Dilaudid and the pain medicine that I'm already taking, it's kind of a deadly mixture. And, 1 milligram of Dilaudid made a 375-pound guy feel pretty good. But that eventually had an effect on my system to where it was just starting to shut my whole system down. I guess about 2:30 that morning, I stopped breathing. And so the nurses called downstairs to the ICU people that somebody was coding. The nurses were giving me CPR.
You never think of
negatives?
Having your kids go before you. Seriously. I mean, I got, 25 years on him?
I guess when the doctor got upstairs, the first thing he did was jump on my bed and straddle me, and he said he'd give me like 8 or 9 heart punches. And then he did CPR all the way downstairs, and they got me downstairs, and I still didn't have a rhythm.
I came home and I finally got to sleep, and about, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang. And the gal on the other end says, "We'd like you to come to the hospital. Michael's had an incident."
They kept working on me, and finally they shocked me.
Well, by the time I get dressed and go from this area over to Bergen, it didn't take me long.
Got a rhythm back. Then a minute or so later, I lost rhythm again.
I thought, oh shit, what, did he throw a nurse out the window or a doctor or something, And I get there, and they meet me at the door. Said, I figured, well, they're going to take me up to the 4th floor or whatever floor he was on. We're going to the ICU, and I'm, what? And then it dawned on me, he had an incident.
They shocked me again. I got a rhythm for another short time and went into B-fib again. And
when I got there, they were still working on him.
Shocked me a 3rd time, and I came out of it. But during this whole process of being dead for 10 minutes, I seen the white light. I had my final custody hearing with my kids coming up in a couple weeks. In the back of my mind, I had the court looming and my ex-wife and all that shit in my head. So that's what was on my head. So, I could feel like somebody was like beating me up, subconsciously. But I was thinking that it was my ex-wife. I thought she was trying to kill me and having guys, beat me up and stuff, but they couldn't kill me. So she dropped me off at a hospital full of alien doctors and told them to kill me. When I actually came out of it, I thought the doctor was a fucking alien, and I said, "Get the fuck away from me, you fucking alien. You're not killing me." He was like, "Do you know where you're at?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm at Bergen Mercy Hospital, and you're a bunch of fucking alien doctors trying to kill me." But in that whole process, I can remember just standing there alone, and there was this silver tunnel in front of me with just one little opening on the side of the tunnel. That was the only place to go, was in that doorway. And I walked in that tunnel, and I looked both ways, and to the right, I could see a little light at the end of the tunnel that seemed far, far away. And it had like 2 little silhouettes in it. It looked like people. So I look to my right, and I see this silhouette, this white light at the end on the right, and I look to my left. All of a sudden, the whole tunnel illuminates completely white. I looked back, I stopped, and I turned around, and I could see silhouettes of people which were angels, and they were waving me home and telling me that, come with us, you know, you'll have eternal life. And they were like faceless angels with wings, and you know, they had a silhouette of a hand reaching out, waving you. It's like I covered like 2 mile span in seconds. And it was my 2 daughters waving at me. They were really animated in their waving. They were like, their waves were like huge. They were like, "Goodbye, Daddy." It's like I just dropped them off for their first day of school. They were like, "Goodbye, Daddy. We love you. We'll see you later. Bye." I think it's at that moment when I woke up and I first came to, and I thought the doctor was a fucking alien. I was really anxious and scared, and I felt like I'd been through a fucking war. And I can remember like kind of almost panicking, and said, "Your dad's here." And I said, "My dad's here." And I was screaming. I was like, "Dad, Dad, Dad."
He grabbed a hold of my hand. I didn't think I was going to be able to use it ever again. And he says, "Don't leave me."
He says, "They're trying to
He
kill
says,
me."
"They're trying to kill me." I says, "No, the guy's trying to keep you alive."
And I could hear this voice saying, I'm here, Michael, I'm here." And there he was, and I just remember I reached out and I grabbed his hand, and I just was squeezing his hand, and I pulled it to my chest, and he told me I about ripped his arm out of his socket. And he says I wouldn't let his hand go, and he was like, you know, begging me. He's like, "Can I have my hand back? I can't feel my hand." He says, "You're pulling my fucking shoulder out of my socket." That's the last little bit I remember before I passed out the first time.
They made me a bed on the couch, and I slept on the couch there the rest of the night.
Yeah, I remember I spent like 4 or 5 more days in the hospital, and I came home, and like the first 3 or 4 months, I couldn't fall asleep at night. I was afraid. My purpose here on this earth is to be the best father I could be to them 2 girls. It was like that was my sign. Because I've had things with the accident, stabbing, and car accidents. I'm on like my 6th or 7th life.
My fondest memory with my dad was when my mom kicked me out because I was having problems with her boyfriend.
Drunk and was on meth, and I think she was doing it too, and you know, she was just letting the boyfriend, you know, verbally abuse the girls.
And I just couldn't take it. So when she kicked me out, I moved here with my dad, and he got me the stuff I needed.
That's the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life, was fight for my daughters. So I hired a lawyer at $300 an hour and got full custody of my daughters.
My fondest memory was when a year ago I moved in with my dad because my mom wasn't really there for me, so he was, and he wanted to take me in.
You know, I guess all good things come out of something bad, you know?
He was there for me when I needed to talk to him.
I mean, because trust me, it's not easy being both the mom and the dad in the household.
Usually I need somebody to talk to like every week, so I feel like he's there when I need to talk to him. So we just have like really deep conversations a lot.
You know, I could just feel sometimes the way they hug me that they were probably thinking about them dreaming that they were hugging their mom, you know? Sometimes they just come up and hug you and squeeze you a little tighter and a little tighter. And it's like saying thank you, Dad, but yet thinking about their mom too.
I feel like I'm more happy, and it's been really easy.
I was really sad and depressed, and like I didn't want to do anything. And now that I'm here full time, I'm really happy, and I feel like there's a lot of people around me that like care about me and will do a lot for me. So I feel better here.
he does a lot and he spends a lot of money for us, like every year, because he cares for like if we want to go on a vacation or we just want to go somewhere in a family time. We go to like Worlds of Fun or Adventureland.
It's just the three of us, you know? Just the three of us. Wasn't that a song?
I think it's just the two of us, but yeah.
Oh, was it just the two of us?
The girls, they're being baptized and confirmed. And he asked me to be the godfather to his daughters. It's a big, it's an honor. And then the day of the baptism and the ceremony, we go out to the church and, you know, we're all dressed up and everything. And the girls are confirmed and baptized, and we take them up, go in the back of the church, and they do the baptism with the oil and the water. And then, and so I just look, I don't know why, I look back and we got, you know, and I look back and he's crying. It dawned on me to see that transformation. He had made that transformation from being the I don't give a fuck, it's about me, to transformation of watching his daughters be baptized, and it gave me a different perspective. I'm gonna be honest with you, kid. My proudest moment of you throughout all your accomplishments is when we were at the church, and I looked back and you were teared up, and you hugged both of your daughters. And for you to get them from point A to point B to where they're at today, where they're both with you now, and they're not with the crazy mother, is probably my moment as a friend where I can say, out of all the things, good, bad, and different, that is the thing that I'm probably the most proud of you about.
Growing up adopted, knowing I'm adopted, the one and only thing that I've always tried to do is make my mom and dad proud of me. To say, look at the man that we adopted. What a great choice we made.
One time he told me, he says, "You raised me well."
You know, of course, I wanted to be that superstar, stud, jock, you know. I wanted to be in the, you know, limelight. Wanted to be that professional athlete. That's part of what I love about, you know, my time in the WWE is no matter how long ago it was, no matter how stupid of a character Vince put on me, I made chicken salad out of chicken shit. And look at life a whole lot differently now than I used to. I have a whole new appreciation for waking up every morning, seeing that sunrise, because it doesn't matter at all what you did yesterday or what happened yesterday. It's what happens today that really counts. And because you can't change what happened yesterday, good, bad, or ugly, you can't change it. You can't take it back. You don't get a do-over, you know. You just move on in life, you know. And you just got to try to make every day better than yesterday. I've come a long way as a man. I've come a long way as a human being. And I've put my stamp on society.
We ain't gonna We ain't gonna be here forever.
He ain't gonna have us to rely on forever, you know.
Mantaur here, former WWF superstar, coming to you on Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. It's a great day to be alive. And I'm large and I'm charged and I'm looking simply outstanding. And I'm happy to be here talking to all you folks out there in TikTok land. So, as we all know, life presents a handful of everyday issues, whether it be relationship problems, financial problems, health problems, whatever it may be that's bothering you that day. And you know what? I don't have the answer to all your problems, but all I can say is there's always somebody out there that cares about you. You know, have faith in God. That's a huge thing. You know, say a prayer every day. When I wake up every day, I thank God for opening up my two eyes because I'm just happy to be alive. And this is like my 10th chance at life. I've been dead a few times, but I'm still here talking to you, telling you about my life because, you know, life sucks sometimes and it's not easy, but you always have a friend. So remember that. And if you ever need somebody to talk to, just reach out to me. Send me a message. I'll be there for you. You know, and on a personal note, I got a lot of good news to share. I got my action figure coming out from KWK Action Figures on the 22nd of this month. I'm currently shopping around for a distributor for my documentary, The Mighty Mantaur, that is finished and ready to show all you people. And I just started writing my book, Mantaur's Memoirs. So, baby, let me tell you, I got a lot to be thankful for. You know, my camera girl is my 14-year-old daughter, Debbie. She's the greatest. She's helped me shoot all these videos. So without her, I wouldn't be able to reach all you people. So I'm grateful for her, too. Grateful for everything in my life. I'm just enjoying it. Living my best life, of course. I'm at my home, Cape Coral, Florida. It's nice and sunny out here. It's hot as hell. You know, but I don't have to be out here. I can stay in the AC if I want to. So life is good. You always have choices in life. Never forget that. You always have a choice. You have a choice to succeed or you have a choice to fail. What do you want to do? Because being a success is not easy. There's a lot of trials and tribulations that come along with being successful. You got to take the good with the bad and with the unfortunate, ugly. But one thing for sure is, if you want to be successful, the key to success is never give up. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your life. Just plain and simple, never give up. So keep strutting out there, folks. Keep smiling, keep profiling, keep doing your thing, and keep living your best life. Because remember, you only die once, but you live every day. Mantaur loves you, everybody. Peace out. Have a good one. Until next time.
shots with me. I'm trouble, I'm fast, I'm clean. I've roamed this land, one man done conquered it all. And it stings, but let me say, you'll thank me yet one day. It's a price that we all must pay.
I love you, Coach.
We'll be right back.